All right, everybody, here we go with game number 1 of this Batman release day rainbow draft. We roll off, and I win the roll off, and I think about how I want to, if I want to go first or second, how I want to play that. I think game 1s are super interesting when it comes to rainbow drafts because that's really where the rubber meets the road. It's you have this idea of what your team can do, but it's in game 1 where you actually have to make decisions on how your team is going to play out. So in this instance, I elect to go second because I want 4 energy. Here's my opponent's team. He's got an uncommon Mr. Miracle, and right next to that he's got a Big Barda, so he can put Big Barda out there and buff up the Mr. Miracle, which is really cheap, and make that a nice 5/4. He also has a common Firefly, but not a lot of Bolt characters outside of Mr. Freeze and Penguin to go with it. He's got Ra's al Ghul, which has a global that might actually give me some fits if he uses it correctly. He's got the pay mask. Target character loses its villain affiliation. But it's not going to do too much because this isn't the one that's really looking for villains. It's more looking for bolts. But if I wanted to go the ramp route with that Harley Quinn that I brought, then it wouldn't really be doing me much, or it would be affecting me in that way. He's got the question. I already mentioned Mr. Freeze. This is the uncommon Mr. Freeze. That is the stun token applier when it blocks or is blocked. He's got a just really sort of basic Penguin with that Gadgeteer ability. Not much usefulness out of that. And a Batman. He's running Infiltrate and Nasty Plot. Nasty Plot is good here in that you're drawing and prepping 2 dice every time you use it, but it's kind of expensive. I would have probably, if it were me on that side, I probably would have brought Superhero Registration Act over that. Infiltrate can be kind of interesting in that he can buy it and then use it to apply the New Gods affiliation to any of his dice, giving them the buff from Big Barda. So that's a pretty cool little tech choice. You kind of have to buy it and then use it a couple of times to get its value, though. It feels a little bit slow in that you have to buy it and wait to use it and then apply it once you've gotten Big Barda. And Big Barda's 5, so you have to kind of work towards a 5 drop as well. So there may be some usefulness in that. We'll see. All right, so my opponent draws his first 3 dice and rolls them up and gets a Bolt, and Shield. He's gonna, looks like he's gonna scoop. No, he's gonna leave a bolt there. Then he rolls it up, gets Bolt, Fist. So he's got 3 energy to play with. He does have a 2-cost character. It looks like he's going to pick up a Firefly, which is very interesting. Which means his next couple of buys are most likely going to be Bolt characters. Otherwise, that purchase of Firefly is a little bit strange, a little bit off. Here's what I don't want. I don't want 2 sidekicks and a Bolt and a Fist. I want to be able to buy Firefly turn 1, so I'm going to reroll both sidekicks because I don't want either of those land. I'll actually take the Fist because it does me no good as well. The Fist comes back. I get a shield and a mask, so this is pretty good. Or actually, 2 shields. 2 shields, a Bolt, and a mask. I'm going to pay that mask to prep a die from my bag using Villainous Pact, which is the reason that I brought that, for these exact type of rolls. I expect to be rolling, obviously I'm going to be rolling 4 every turn, but allowing me to buy a 3-drop and then ramp with that mask that I can come up with, if I can come up with one, is really strong, because I'm not having to go out of my way to buy something that I don't really want or that I have to cycle for ramp, like SRA. So this fits nicely. I pick up a Firefly with those 3 energy, and my opponent immediately scoops up his other 4 dice from his bag, rolls them up. Got 2 sidekicks. Now he's got 3 question marks and a Bolt, so he can pick up anything of 4 or less. So here's an interesting choice. I think a Penguin would be probably the most appropriate choice because he has a Bolt character, or he has a Bolt-centric character, but he's going to pick up he's going to pick up 2 Mr. Miracles. Very interesting. So those don't play well with the Firefly that he purchased first, but maybe he's just looking to get Firefly for the body. You have to pay a lot to field Firefly, though, so an interesting decision all around. It does have better stats than his other 3-drop in the question, so maybe he was just looking to maximize his energy usage and not let any of his energy float, essentially. Because he could have bought Mr. Miracle turn 1 as well, but instead he's choosing to buy those turn 2 and buy 2 of them and pick up with the 3 his Firefly. So not a bad line overall. Not a bad line. So 4 sidekicks come back out of the bag, plus the 1 that I prepped from last turn. So I've got 5 energy here. And I've got no bolts, so I'm going to want to re-roll some stuff, or I'm going to spend that in some crazy way. I've got one set aside there, one mask set aside to be able to use Villainous Pact. The goal is to use that every turn. The other option here is to pick up 2 Hawk Girls. If I do that, then I'm missing out on some of the bolt synergy that I have with Huntress, or buying a second Firefly. So it would probably behoove me to pick up another, or to pick up and re-roll, excuse me, and see if I can pick up another bolt character. I do come up with exactly 1 question mark, which means I have to think about how I want to purchase. I've got 4 energy and 1 bolt. I can't buy multiple bolt characters anyway. 1, because I only have 1 bolt, and 2, because I have exactly 5 energy. And I have already earmarked one of those masks, so I technically have 4. So there I am prepping a die from the bag using Villainous Pact. And I think the best buy here is to go with a Riddler, because he is a 4-drop. And if I've got the energy, why not? Now, the other option here would be to go with Huntress. Huntress is a great die, and she's going to be able to KO anything that's on his field or anything that's on my field, because all of his purchasable, or all of the dice that he has purchased, have defense stats that line up well for me to KO with Huntress. But I think the better play here is to pick up one of those Riddler dice. And that is the Riddler that I'm running that allows you to, when he attacks, flip his attack and defense. So on his top side, he can actually go from a 3/6 to a 6/3, which is very cool. Plays well in an aggressive team. So my opponent has his, he's going to straight up, not even re-roll, just going to pick up a Mr. Freeze immediately. It's interesting. I wonder why a Mr. Freeze. He had 5 there. I don't think he had the ability to... he could have re-rolled an energy or 2 to see if he could land a big Barda. He seems to be more prepared to roll a big Barda. Though this is a bolt character. His 5-drop there, Mr. Freeze, is a bolt character. So that does play well with the Firefly that he just used to pay for it. My roll over here, I've got character face on Firefly, and I've got a sidekick. Sidekicks are good. I want to start getting those out onto the field, so I'm going to field that out. First, I'm going to prep a die. Then I'm going to field that out. No point in doing that in one order or the other. They do the same. When Firefly hits the field, his when fielded effect looks at the board after he's hit the field and then counts the number of bolt characters. There's only 1 bolt character on on my side of the field, and that is him. So he counts himself and deals 1 damage to my opponent, which is a really, really cool aspect of when fielded attacks, is that they count themselves. Excuse me, when fielded abilities, not when fielded attacks. Now the question here is, do I push with a 4/4 Firefly and deal another 4 damage to him and allow that to cycle back through the bag? Or do I keep it in the field and use it as a blocker? Now my opponent, I know, has 2 Mr. Miracles in the bag. And if he rolls those up on their 3/2 sides max, he's got, 6 damage to push plus like a sidekick, let's say, or 2 sidekicks. That would be really bad, right? So I think that I can hold off with 1 sidekick. I can take some damage if I have to, and this pushes that clock even more. And I don't have a cycle ability with Firefly yet, so pushing that damage and allowing him to move through the bag is my cycle mechanic currently. So he actually does draw both Mr. Miracles. Rolls up 1, or actually rolls them all up, and lands 1, excuse me. Has a double mask on the other one. It's also got a mask and a shield. I believe the one that he's rolled down here is a 1/1? That's a great roll for me. Not so good for him. He lands both, and a sidekick. Wow, I almost called it. It's been a while since I played this game. I forgot what happened. He's got a bolt that's just going to float. Nothing on either of our teams has a bolt energy. Global. Now the question here is, does he push with one of those Mr. Miracles? He's going to think about it. And he passes. So I'm going to draw 4 and add the 1 that I prepped last turn. And roll them all up. And I get the 1 energy face on my Riddler there. Gonna want to re-roll that, obviously, right? Looking at the other energy that I have 2 fists here. I don't really want those fists. I keep, what is that? I keep 1 fist just to keep it around. Double bolt face on the Riddler, so that's a bit unlucky, but not terrible. Now I've got 5 energy to play with. Now, and here's one of those instances where I did not prioritize a re-rolling for a mask, and I probably should have. Because having a mask here and allowing me to prep it is great. I don't need 5 energy. There's a lot of things that, I mean, I have 2 cards that I could purchase for 5, but I don't think any of those provide me the benefit of, that purchasing like another Firefly would, or a Huntress to cycle the 1 Firefly that I have already. So it's an awkward purchasing turn with the 5 versus if I'd had the 4, it would have been a little nicer because I could, or it would, if I would have had the 5 and the 1 mask, it would have been a little nicer because at least I get some ramp out of it. So I'm going to pick up a Huntress so that I can cycle that Firefly. And then I'm just going to, in the turn, float 2 energy, a bolt, and a shield. And again, there's no bolt or shield globals. So my opponent's drawing. He's got to reload his bag and then draw 1 to make 4. Picks up another Firefly. And this is where maybe picking a different... Well, no, I still think his line is right. His line is correct. He just needs to land that Mr. Freeze, and he can start pinging me the same way that I did him. So he's got a Firefly here. I've got 2 sidekicks in the field, so I feel okay. Let's assume that he pushes with everything, including this Firefly. I can block the 2 largest and take minimal damage. He's got a mask. It looks like he's going to join in on the Villainous Pact game. He's going to ramp a die, moving it over to prep. Here's a fun aside. If you've seen any of the spoilers for any of the new dice, new cards, new Dice Master sets, they're actually just calling it, like anything that moves something to the prep area, rather than saying it moves to the prep area, they're now just saying, draw 2 dice and prep them. I kind of like that. So he attacks with Firefly. I block with 1 sidekick, and I get some ramp, some free ramp, which is nice. I am all about that. I think that's right, though. Honestly, I think it's right for him to push with stuff and force my sidekicks out of the field, hoping that I don't re-roll them. Because what I'm looking to do here, starting probably around now, is I'm looking to get Firefly out on the field and just keep KOing him constantly with Huntress. And I'm not really looking to attack anymore. I've already done probably as much face damage as I need to, unless I have one final push that actually just straight up kills everything. Going to KO his sidekick because I have to KO something. I'd rather his sidekick to get knocked out than any of his characters there, because none of his characters are actually on their top sides. And it would just be better for me that they stay in the field on the sides that they are than it would be for him to re-roll them. Plus, it also gives him a little bit of ramp if I KO and he comes up with a double energy side. So he's going to draw and roll up his dice here. Not landing character faces there on anything. Got a lot of masks, though. Rolling it up, and I think that's a Mr. Freeze. Going to pay a mask, bring that Mr. Freeze out. And this is not the Winfielded like I'm running. This is the attacks and blocks. Or blocks or is blocked by is the way the word goes. So he's got 4 energy. He could pick up a Batman. He could pick up a Penguin. Looks like he's going to buy an action die. Then he's going to push yet again. Looks like he's going to push with 2. I'm going to chump block with my 2 sidekicks. And again, I think this is correct by him to get my sidekicks out of the field, because he needs to be able to do damage. He sees the strategy of my team and knows that there's sort of a clock on him. The clock is ticking. Especially if I can re-roll and land this Firefly. It's now just fielding a Firefly is going to deal 3 because I have a Riddler here as well. I've got more than enough energy to do the fielding. Gonna scoop and re-roll. I should have kept 1 mask, I think. Definitely should have kept 1 mask. That was an error. Luckily, I get a question mark to come up, and a sidekick does come up. That was the goal there, is to re-roll sidekicks, or to roll for sidekicks. There's a really, really small chance that I come up with like something crazy that allows me not to field the Firefly. But that's a really, really small probability. So I'm going to pay one of those energy to prep over one of my dice. There was nothing in my bag, so with whatever was in my used pile, one of those sidekicks is just going to move straight over to prep. I field and deal him damage equal to 3, 1, 2, 3, dropping from 15 to 12 thanks to Firefly, and now I've got a nice board to contest really anything that he's got so far, and as long as he doesn't go crazy with some, like buying up a huge amount of low-cost characters or something like that, getting a ton of sidekicks out, I can basically block everything that I have. He uses Nasty Plot on this turn. He actually drew it and rolled it, which is awesome. He's got 3 energy remaining, and he prepped 2 die for next turn. 2 dice, excuse me. Looks like he's going to buy... no, he's buying a question. Nope, he's not buying a question. He's picking up an Infiltrate. So maybe he's trying to set up for the Big Barda play, but he doesn't have a Big Barda, so maybe it was a better purchase. Instead of Mr. Freeze, it was a better purchase to buy Big Barda. So I'm going to block here, and I'm going to block just like that. The Firefly is going to take the stun token. I'm going to plop that down onto him, which means he can't attack or block. My Firefly can't attack or block, but the great thing about that is I don't care. My Firefly is not meant to attack or block because he's just there to hit the field and then get KO'd by Huntress. And I block with the Riddler, which is perfect because he's got a huge defensive side and not going to get KO'd by that. Not going to get KO'd by that Firefly. 2 sidekicks come up, which is great. And I've got a 2 energy side on the Firefly. Gonna try to re-roll that to a character. Thinking about re-rolling one of the sidekicks, but don't really need to. I've got exactly what I need for energy. I come up with the, it looks like the 4/4 side there, which is great. Gonna pay an energy. Gonna Villainous Pact, a die from my bag. Gonna pay to field, and I've got 1 energy floating. And fielding that is gonna drop him to 9. Because again, it counts 3 characters that are Bolt affiliated or Bolt energy on the field. Gonna pop him to 9. So the clock is ticking on his side, and I'm only building a larger board, which means he's really gonna have to do some KOing of my board and pushing with damage. Otherwise, I'm just gonna burn him out. Luckily for him, he's rolling a ton of stuff this turn. He's got 2 prepped. He had Mr. Freeze KO'd last turn. He's got a sidekick there. He's probably, in my opinion, he should really push for more sidekicks because he needs to push with something. He needs to do a lot of damage. Gonna re-roll the energy and the character face. That wasn't a character face. Looking for character faces. Sidekick goes out. See, all of this energy, at this point, you really don't want to be buying. I mean, there's not a lot that, well, outside of a Big Barda, there's not a lot here that does a ton for purchasing. Maybe more ramp, which looks like he's prepped that die out. Unfortunately for him, he did not land the Mr. Freeze, and so he's going to buy a Big Barda now, but it might be too little too late if I can get something out there to cycle my Firefly. Gonna draw and roll. Got a sidekick. Four energy. Got a bolts, a fist, a mask, and a shield. This is one of those moments where if I had a white lantern in the draft, that would actually be possible to purchase. One of the few moments where that's actually possible to purchase. Gonna pay 3 for a Huntress. I'm gonna prep a die. Luckily, I get to prep Huntress over, which is really awesome, because my bag is empty, and that's one of my favorite things in this entire game to do, and I'm not going to attack. Obviously, I can't attack with that Firefly because of the stun token. I didn't pay to remove it, and so that would be the only possible way of cycling. Plus, I just want to keep my field where it is. My board position and my board presence is really strong. So he's going to draw and roll, and Big Barda is here but she's not landing on her character face just yet. He's also got Infiltrate and a Nasty Plot. So the combo is actually right here. The combo is ready to go. Unfortunately for him, he doesn't have anything that applies Overcrush. So the threat is minimal towards my side. And unfortunately for him, he also doesn't land that big Barda. So he's got some energy. He's got 2, 4, 6 energy, it looks like. And he's got 1 Infiltrate, which won't really apply. I mean, it can give something +3 defense, meaning he can attack and it will survive. So picking up a Raz Al Ghul. Looks like he's not going to use the Infiltrate. Gonna let that burn and not attack, it looks like. Oh, he's thinking about it. Thinking about where he wants to apply it. It does give +3 defense, even though the combo, doesn't get to go into effect. He's gonna pass it on and not attack, which will then move over to me. And I will draw, I think I'll draw exactly the 4 dice that are in my used pile and the 1 die from my prep area, because I've made sure that my bag is empty, which is something that is really, really good. If you can manage, I would work towards that in every game, because it opens up a lot of new strategic possibilities of purchasing and then immediately prepping it over, whatever you can purchase. So highly recommend working in every game, using whatever ramp is at your disposal to empty your bag and leave it as empty as possible. And part of the reason that I can do that is because I've gotten 4 of my sidekicks completely out of the bag and onto the field, which is a very interesting feature of this game. So going to add the used to the prep, going to roll it all up. And now I have a sick play here where I'm going to be able to field the Huntress and KO my Firefly. Before I do that, though, that will move it immediately to prep. So what I'm going to want to do first is maybe either purchase or prep a die if there's anything that I want to purchase. Purchase and then prep a die, excuse me. But I don't have enough energy to do so. There's nothing in my bag. There's nothing in my used. So just going to do the plan. I could have bought a Hawk Girl there. That was an option if I wanted a Hawk Girl. Gonna buy another Firefly. That's actually a better buy, a better play anyway. Have a Firefly that I'll roll next turn, guaranteed, and have a 1 in 5 chance, but that triggers 4 times, so a really high probability of drawing the second Firefly and having both Fireflies be able to be rolled. In fact, if both get rolled, let's see how that would go. He's got 4 energy, or he's got 3 energy and 1 sidekick on his roll. Not a lot going on his turn this turn. So if both Fireflies came up, theoretically, next turn, the first one would hit the field and it would deal 4, because it would be the 3 that are already on the field plus 1, which is that Firefly, dealing 4, and the next one would deal 5. So actually that would be lethal if both come up. My opponent fields a sidekick and buys. No, actually he re-rolled it and bought a Nasty Plot off the energy that it came up. He's gesturing at my side of the board because he realizes that he can't push through it, and that is the ultimate danger of what I've got going on here. So I've got a high probability of drawing the 1 in the bag, the 1 Firefly in the bag. That does come up, and have the other Firefly. So if both come up and I can field both, which it should, well, unfortunately both didn't come up. They both come up as energy. I've got the energy though, so gonna re-roll both and hope they both come up. If they do, that's game. And it does, actually. They both come up. So we've got enough energy to field 1. That's going to deal 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And pay 2 to field the last one. That's going to deal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that is the game. Overall, game number 1, I was able to pick that up fairly easily because this team is insane. This team is sick, and I kind of feel bad that I can put it together, but it was actually a lot of fun, too. I think this is going to be a cool little constructed team as well. I think you can do some really nice stuff with it. So that's game number 1. I am currently 1-0, and then we're going to move on to game number 2 now. Thanks for watching.